I recently had a lot of people point me toward this 3D model from Wexter, and I always appreciate when people do that. This is a little bit of an odd-looking Jabba, you might think at first glance, but that's because his tail has been designed in such a way that it is flexible, even though you are just going to be printing it in filament on a regular 3D printer. Wexter kindly agreed to let me have this model so I could try it out and maybe print it on the channel. So this idea of a flexible print-in-place model is that you have a single model that you print just on its own without, having to assemble anything. All the pieces in the tail, in this case, are separate, but they print in such a way that they all become locked together, and they're kind of like a chain in that sense. I thought this was pretty clever, and I really liked the way he handled Jabba's sort of body section as well. It's made in such a way that you don't require any kind of support material or anything, so it's a really easy print. The folks at Elegoo sent me one of their Neptune 2 filament printers. Of course, Elegoo is primarily known for their resin printers, but they do also make some filament printers. This isn't going to be a review of this printer, but I thought I'd give it a shot and see what it was like. And I thought I would use a different kind of filament than I've ever used before, which is color-changing filament. This actually changes color depending on the ambient temperature. So right now you can see it looks mostly yellow because it's still at a pretty high temperature. There's a heated bed and a hot nozzle. But when it cools down, it will be orange. And you can see that there are parts of the model already that have cooled down enough to start to turn orange. And here is the completed model. It took around 32 hours to print at the highest quality setting, so it's pretty smooth looking. So here we have the printed model, all in orange, as you can tell. And if I pick it up, you can see how the articulated tail works. Kind of will move all around in various directions. You can have it curled in front of him like that, which I kind of like the look of, or in back of him, or even underneath him like this, which you can't, he won't stay like this. I kind of tried balancing him like this earlier, and it wouldn't work. But if I take one of these acrylic stands that I use for some of my collection, you can sort of perch him on something, the edge of a book or a table or something like that, and have him positioned this way, which is actually a pretty cool pose. Now, I don't know if you noticed while I was holding this a second ago, but you could see where I had him in my hands that it was changing color, see? That's just from the heat of my hand. And if we want to, we can take a heat gun and sort of accelerate that process quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is use this from a fair distance away so I don't melt it, and just watch it change color. All right, I'm going to stop and zoom in just a little bit here. One thing I like is if you just do it part way, you can see that the raised areas become yellow, kind of like a highlight, but the inside parts, the wrinkles and crevices and things, still stay orange. So it looks really cool. Look at that. But if we keep doing this, it will eventually turn all yellow, and we'll have to wait a while for it to go back to orange. I was pretty fascinated with how this looked, and I especially like the kind of gradient effect that you can get in some cases. It's a bit of a shame that you can't freeze it when you get something that you like the look of, because it's always going to go back to that default color of orange in this case. But this was cool enough that I decided to try a different kind of filament that I had seen on Amazon that's supposed to have 3 different colors. This time green, orange, and yellow, which seemed perfect for Jabba. So this is the filament in question. It's a dark green when it's just on the spool, but when it goes through the printer, it comes out kind of a yellow and then cools to an orange, and it looked really promising. Here you can see it's starting to cool down on parts of the model so that parts of it are turning green, but other parts are still other colors. And finally, here's the completed model before it had cooled down completely.
So here we have the new filament. This may even look like a gray depending on the lighting, but it's definitely kind of a forest or hunter green, as long as it's at room temperature or kind of cool. But as soon as you start to warm it up a little bit, it's going to start to change to orange. And we'll see if my hand here is enough to just make it change a little bit. Well, only very slightly. I can feel this is actually pretty cool to the touch. I'm in a basement here, so room temperature is actually pretty low. But yeah, you can sort of see it. But let's go ahead and get out the old heat gun and see what happens if we warm it up. I think that's pretty awesome looking. And, you know, it does pretty quickly cool down enough that the yellow tends to disappear, so you generally get the orange and the green. It occurred to me that I could use these properties to kind of do this in a more controlled way and maybe take some ice water on a brush, for example, and use it to cool down just portions of the print that I wanted to appear in green, and then let the other parts remain in orange. So that's what I tried.
So I used the heat gun to warm it up all over, and then took the ice water on a brush and just brushed it on some of the parts like the arms and his little neck portion there, as well as the top of the tail, to get it to look a little bit more like Jabba's color scheme. And I was really pleased with how it turned out in the end. Of course, it's a little bit too bad that it will fade almost immediately, but such is life.
Anyway, I just thought this was really cool, the combination of these two, you know, the flexible Jabbas with the color-changing filament was pretty awesome, and it got me enthusiastic about doing some regular filament-based 3D printing again. In fact, I think I'm going to take this green filament here, the triple changing kind, and try and print a vintage Kenner Jabba in it and just see how that turns out. If I am successful with it, I'll maybe put it up on the channel as a short video. You know, one of these hashtag shorts videos that I've heard so much about. All right, thanks very much for watching. Remember, you can check out Wexter's Patreon if you're interested in getting this model. And I will leave links to the kinds of filament that I used for this experiment on Amazon. Those are, you know, it's not sponsored, it's not an affiliate or anything like that. It's just that happened to be what I was able to get at the time I was making this video, but they did work out pretty well for me. Thanks very much for watching. This video was brought to you with the help of my Patreon supporters, including these Palace VIPs and Angelica Brady. Thanks very much for your support. If you'd like to find out how you can support the channel for as little as $1 a month, click the link in the video description and check me out on Patreon.